Have you ever felt that no matter how hard you tried, it was never enough? That something in you is always needed to be adjusted, hidden, improved, just to be accepted. Maybe you don't even know when it started, but you felt it. One day, you just realized you were waiting, always waiting for a sign, a glance, a response, as if your existence only made sense when it was validated by someone else. The silence began to hurt. The looks that never came turned into invisible wounds. You learned to smile even when you didn't want to dress according to the room, to fit the mold, even if it tore you apart inside. And the cruelest part is, no one noticed, because on the outside, you looked fine. But inside, the emptiness kept growing, and with it, the question, who am I when no one's watching? Maybe you've never said it out loud, but it's always been there, whispering on your most exhausted days, in that feeling of being surrounded, yet still alone. And if you've made it this far, it's not by accident. There's still something in you that hasn't been lost, a silent trace of truth. Tired of waiting, ready to remember. In the beginning, it seemed like just a human need to be seen, to be recognized. Who doesn't want to be loved, right? But over time, it became a thirst that never goes away. Because no matter how much you get, the next day, it resets to zero. A compliment, a like, an emoji that tells you you belong. And for a moment, you believe it. That now, yes. Now, everything's okay. Now you have worth. But it's a lie. Because it fades. It always fades. And when it fades, you run again. You post something else. Change your hair, your voice, your opinion. Forced smiles, carefully crafted captions, all strategically designed to reach the other, even if it disconnects you from yourself. And no one warned you that the need for approval works like a drug. The more you consume it, the more addicted you become. The more you try to please, the further you drift from yourself. It's a prison, where the bars are invisible, but the impact is real. Because the mind starts to believe that it only deserves to exist when it's approved, that it only has value when it's seen, that it's only loved if it's perfect. And so, without realizing, you start to disappear, piece by piece, ceasing to be someone and becoming a reflection of others' desires. And the worst part, no one notices that you're losing yourself, because the world applauds those who adapt, even if it costs them their soul. But something in you is starting to awaken, a discomfort, a suspicion, as if this whole pursuit was masking a deeper truth, a truth that hasn't been spoken yet. But soon, it will rise. Do you remember the last time you were truly yourself, without worrying what others would think? No, me neither. The truth is, we lose ourselves slowly. First, it's just a change in tone. Then, a forced laugh, a silence that swallows your opinion, a yes that wanted to be a no. And before you know it, you're living an edited version of yourself, a character carefully shaped not to bother anyone, to be accepted, to fit in. Your voice changes. Your body behaves. Your energy molds to the room, like an emotional chameleon, surviving by adapting, even if it costs you your own color. You've become an expert at sensing what others want to see, at reading the tone of the room before speaking, at erasing yourself to avoid conflict, at pretending everything's fine, even when you're imploding inside. The mask became comfortable, maybe even beautiful, but you know something's wrong. Because deep down, it hurts. It hurts not to be real. It hurts to rehearse who you are every single day. It hurts to live on a stage where no one truly applauds. They just consume. And the worst part? The more you perform, the more lost you feel. Because with every character you create, you drift further from your essence. Your identity dies silently. not with a scream, but with subtle compromises, tiny daily murders of your truth. But wait, not every death is the end. Sometimes it's just the prelude to a rebirth. Have you ever felt your heart freeze when a message goes unanswered? The burning emptiness in your chest, while the little loading circle never ends. The terror isn't just being ignored. It's the feeling that if no one sees you, you cease to exist. It's the panic of a glance that looks away, when the conversation goes quiet, when the group moves on. Without you, exclusion becomes a sentence, and the body reacts before the mind does. Cold sweat, a lump in the throat, a racing heart screaming, "You don't belong here." The mind sets traps. What did I do wrong? Did I talk too much? Was I annoying? And when the truth surfaces, it's brutal. It's not about them. It's about the terror of being rejected. Rejection, a word that weighs a ton. Every silence is a hammer. Every averted gaze, a nail in the coffin of your self-worth. And you find yourself trapped in a loop where the worst sentence is to be forgotten. But in that fear, there's a signal, a breaking point. The moment when pain speaks louder than the need to please. Because only those who felt fear in their skin can choose to say, enough. And in that, enough. And in that, enough, begins the seed of freedom. No one told you, but there's a price for constantly trying to please, and it's not cheap. With every yes you gave when you wanted to say no, you lost a piece of peace. Every time you stayed silent to avoid conflict, you gave up your voice. Every forced smile, you killed a little bit of your truth. The soul began to go into debt, silently, in daily installments of self-abandonment. The bill didn't come all at once, but it came. In the form of exhaustion, a constant sense of not belonging, a nameless sadness that follows you even when everything seems fine. Because trying to please everyone comes with a hidden cost. You stop pleasing yourself, and without noticing, you become a slave. A slave to praise, a slave to likes, a slave to the fear of disappointing, a slave to the role you were taught to play. Freedom. It only exists where there is truth. And when your life is written by others' expectations, you stop living. You start surviving. An existence shaped to fit, not to overflow. But the soul has a limit. And when that limit is crossed, it screams. And that scream is coming. There comes a moment when the body starts to say what the mouth has been silencing. You lie down, but you don't sleep, because the mind is at war. Rehearsing conversations that never happened, trying to predict what others will think. The heart races, not from passion, but from alarm, as if it's running from an invisible danger, a predator that lives inside you and feeds on your anxiety. And the scariest part is that no one sees it. You wake up smiling, you work, you reply, you produce, but inside, you're collapsing. Fatigue that rest doesn't fix. Pains with no medical explanation. A chronic tension that weighs on your shoulders and your soul. Because the body knows, the body feels. The body exposes. It shows you through symptoms that pretending comes at a high cost. That trying to be accepted all the time is exhausting. That living for others is unsustainable. The body screams when the soul goes quiet. And that scream is your call. Not to run faster, but to stop and listen. What's behind the pain? What have you been ignoring in the name of performance? Because the truth, no matter how heavy, is still lighter than the lie that's making you sick. You did everything right. Followed the script. Pleased, adapted, gave in. Reinvented yourself 1,000 times just to be accepted, and you did it. You got the job, the compliment, the message that says, you're amazing, the applause, the likes, the invitations. You became exactly what they wanted. But why does it still hurt? Why, even when you're recognized, do you feel empty? Why, even when surrounded by attention, do you still feel alone? The truth is cruel, but freeing. External acceptance will never heal internal rejection. It doesn't matter how loud they applaud you if you don't believe in who you are. It doesn't matter how many people want you. If, when you look in the mirror, you feel like you're pretending, the pain lingers. Because it was never about winning others over. It was about finding yourself again. But you denied that, out of fear, out of attachment. Because you've invested so much time being who you're not, that now it's hard to admit that maybe all of this was a form of escape. But now, you can't hide anymore. Because when the truth knocks, it doesn't ask permission. It kicks the door down and shows you what was always there. That your greatest fear was never being rejected. It was being yourself, and still not being enough. You did everything right, followed the script, pleased, adapted, gave in, reinvented yourself 1,000 times just to be accepted, and you did it. You got the job, the compliment, the message that says, you're amazing, the applause, the likes, the invitations. You became exactly what they wanted. But why does it still hurt? Why, even when you're recognized, do you feel empty? Why, even when surrounded by attention, do you still feel alone? The truth is cruel, but freeing. External acceptance will never heal internal rejection. It doesn't matter how loud they applaud you if you don't believe in who you are. It doesn't matter how many people want you. If, when you look in the mirror, you feel like you're pretending, the pain lingers. Because it was never about winning others over. It was about finding yourself again. But you denied that, out of fear, out of attachment. Because you've invested so much time being who you're not, that now it's hard to admit that maybe all of this was a form of escape. But now, you can't hide anymore. Because when the truth knocks, it doesn't ask permission. It kicks the door down and shows you what was always there. That your greatest fear was never being rejected. It was being yourself, and still not being enough. After the breaking comes the silence, but a different kind of silence. Not the suffocating emptiness from before, but an open space, a ground where something new can grow. The search is no longer for approval. It's for authenticity. You start to hear a voice that had been buried. A voice that doesn't depend on applause or on anyone else's gaze. It's your voice, fragile, maybe, but true. Rebuilding isn't fast nor easy. It's a painful process of remembering who you are, of accepting your imperfections, of embracing solitude without fear. Because for the first time, solitude isn't a prison. It's a sanctuary. Freedom is born from meeting yourself, from the courage to be whole, even if that means being alone. In this rebuilding, you learn that worth doesn't come from external approval. It comes from the integration of your essence with your existence. It's a path of healing, of self-love, of presence. And even if the world keeps demanding masks, you know now that you can choose to remove them, one by one, until only you remain whole, real, free. If you've made it this far, you already know. Transformation begins in practice. In the daily effort to break free from autopilot, to rediscover yourself. Here are a few keys to unlock the door to your freedom. 24-hour social silence disconnect. No social media, no asking for opinions. Just you, with your own silence. Listen to what rises when the noise fades. Write a letter to yourself. A letter full of compassion, of real love. Speak to who you were, who you are, and who you can become. Without judgment, confront the no-face rejection with courage. Try saying no to others and watch what happens. Discover that the world doesn't fall apart when you choose to be true. Presence, breathing. 5 minutes daily, breathe deeply. Feel the air moving in and out. Bring your mind to the now. Presence is what dissolves fear. Act of micro-rebellion, do something you desire. without telling anyone. A simple gesture, just for you. A quiet revolution against the need for approval. These steps aren't magic, nor easy, but they are seeds that can bloom into freedom. The choice is in your hands. The path begins with the first step. Tell me, who would you be if no one else were watching? What choices would you make if there was no audience, no applause, no approval? Maybe this is your true self, not the one who smiles to please, not the one who bows out of fear of rejection, but the one who still has a voice in the dark, the one who doesn't need to be chosen because they have already chosen themselves. In the end, maybe that's all it is, unlearning the character and relearning how to be whole, even alone, even in silence. Because sometimes silence is the most honest scream there is.